We're in our final topic, topic number 5 of perfecting your pitch, which is on deliver persuasively. Those are two key words that are slightly different. Let's put them together. We're delivering, it's the oral presentation, persuasively. So we don't want to forget that our main objective isn't just to present, it's to persuade. So how do we do that? Well, it's the culmination of all the steps you've done up till now. The contents of this particular topic are introductory comments, preparation, then you walk into the room, then you present, and then you handle Q&A, essentially walking you through the entire process by which you prepare and deliver the presentation. We are on, as mentioned, on our last stop, which is deliver and persuade. We've finished the focusing on our target audience with the game planner. We've finished a good storyline that then gives the message in the way we want to that audience in design. And we've created the slides, both qualitative and quantitative slides. Now it's time to present. How do you present? I don't know, stand up and do it. Well, a little bit more to it. Let's go through it. We might think that pictures, charts, data, words, and videos are persuasive, and that's what makes the presentation. They're nice, but remember, you are the presenter. So don't just focus entirely on what's on the screen. Remember, the eyes should be on you. If you get a little nervous, that's natural. That's normal. But remember, you're conveying your thoughts, and you want to have the control of the presentation and not be afraid of them looking at you. In fact, you should have eye contact with your target audience. So let's recognize the attention patterns that everyone has, you and I have. And that is the highest attention given to any presentation is at the very beginning and at the very end. What does that mean for us? It means that we need to grab the attention at the very beginning and then at the end with a strong ending message or ask. So we want to use those effectively, and our task and challenge in the middle, that vast middle of the presentation, is keep the attention up so that we don't lose them. So we start strong, we maintain as good as possible presentation, and then we end strong. That's the idea. Remember that the most powerful slide is no slide. You might try it sometime. That's really scary because now the audience has nothing to look at except for you and your face. It's a terrifying thought. But that is the most powerful slide, if you will, is no slide. At that point, people are watching you. You're going to punch home a very important point. Save those for just those rare moments where you demand and command the attention. And it's typically when you perhaps give a setup, an emotional story of a connection, something that is really catastrophic that you need to address. Something very emotionally charged is good for the no slide approach. Or just a very strong business point, of course. It doesn't have to be emotional. Remember that we're presenting not only data, but we're presenting meaning. Data is just data, it's information. The so what is what we're after. So what? We see the data, what does it tell us? What does it mean that we should do? The way we then would present is we give the context of the data. The sources, the purposes, the age, what's here, what isn't here. That's just to orient the audience as to what you're presenting. Sometimes it's so obvious you don't have to do elaborate setup. On the other hand, it may be complicated, in which case you absolutely need to do a proper setup. Next, what is the message? Tell them, don't make them guess. Often, as we've been doing in the last couple of topics, the title represents the message, right? So it's there. But in addition to that message, you may have some ancillary or even stronger points you want to make during your presentation of that slide. Choose your display perfectly because we want it to reinforce and drive the point home. Describe the analysis that you are looking at and why you're interpreting it in the way that you are, and then have some recommended actions, if appropriate, from that particular slide. But you always want to move to what I call the so what. Like, you're showing me data, what does it tell us? What does it push us to do by way of action? When you present in 3 steps. Orient the audience to what you're looking at. You might have a slide and a graph that you know very well, but they've never seen it. So orient them. Don't rush into interpreting the slide. Tell them what they're looking at. Normally that means describe the horizontal axis, the vertical axis, the points that you're graphing, and then go and make your observation and conclusions based on the data. So nail the point and then bring them along. Bring them along is transition, how you move from one slide to the next. And the transition should not be, and on our next slide, or next we have, there should be a story. You went through all that trouble to develop a good storyboard. It would be, let's say you show the problem and you end that particular slide with, I think we all agree that this is a problem that must be solved for the betterment of society. Let's look at how we propose to solve this problem, right? That's a smoother transition than that's the problem, what's next, right? It's not quite as strong. You have the whole story. There are natural transitions, or you would not have put your storyboard in that sequence. Use those as your transitions. This, by the way, is a good tell, if you will, on whether a presenter has really prepared and understands the entire message or not. They tell a story, and it flows from slide to slide, and not next slide, and next we have, none of that. Now we're going to go through the stages of a presentation and do it in the form that we've been doing in prior topics of do's and don'ts. In this case, we're going to start with don'ts and then show what we should do, right? And you can probably guess at the do's by looking at the don'ts, but let's do it in turn. Before the presentation, by way of preparation, what you don't want to do is flip through the slides on your computer, going next on your computer, and think about what you're going to say. Oh, on this slide, I'm going to say this. Oh, click. On that slide, I'm going to say that without speaking aloud. That's not a good practice. I'll give the alternative in a moment. And you only practice your session. Let's say there's 3 of you presenting, and you have the middle set of slides. Don't just practice the middle set of slides. Go through the entire presentation. In a way, you should be able to present the entire presentation yourself, but you will focus, of course, on your assigned slides. By knowing the entire presentation, you'll have the feel of what preceded you and where you're going. So now the transitions, not from slide to slide, from person to person, are much better. So look in the entire presentation. And write out full sentences or notes. So you see people with notes like this and they're reading from the notes. Or the other thing you see quite often is they grab their mobile phone and you see them doing this. That's quite common these days to see both of those actions. You see that both of those are don'ts. Let's move to some do's before the presentation. Review the game planner, because that was put together in order to focus the presentation toward a specific audience with specific messages, outcomes, and what's in it for them understanding. Make sure you understand all that as you go into the room. Learn the slides. What is the message? What are the contents? What are those transitions that we were just describing to make it smooth? If you want to have notes in your hand, then I would recommend, instead of a large sheet of paper, maybe a sheet of paper folded in half so it's not as obtrusive, or better yet, an index card, those old-fashioned index cards. Have that as what you hold. The other thing to do is to avoid putting a full sentence. If there's a full sentence, you might think, subconsciously perhaps, that I crafted the perfect sentence. I have to read it. It's so well crafted. But that's wrong. Put phrases or even words. That is only there in case you get stuck. To take a glance and say, oh yeah, that was what I was going to say next. It's not verbatim what you're going to say. So remember that. Never full sentences, words or phrases large enough for you to see without squinting or pulling it up to your face so you can casually glance, right? And put them in a smaller note card or a folded piece of paper. The next and most important aspect is practice, practice, practice. And when I was learning how to present, I would constantly talk to myself in the shower, on the drive to the client or the office. Every chance I had, I wanted to hear my voice because I wasn't used to speaking and wasn't used to speaking forcefully even. So how do you change the tone, the pace? How do you do that with your voice? It's not just words, it's how you deliver with your voice. And the only way to do it is say it aloud. It's not reading in your mind. We're not reading for comprehension. We're reading for practicing the sound of your voice as you convey your thoughts to the audience. First, read to yourself in your mind. That's fine as a first pass. Then practice aloud, ideally in a similar setting, a room that has similar acoustics, get the sound of your voice. If there's an echo or if there's a mic, you can hear that. And then practice again and again until you no longer need to look at the screen or the notes. You know it rock solid cold, right? So what that means is that when you're in the room, you're no longer thinking of what you're going to say. You know that. And now you're going to concentrate on delivering the message and connecting your message to the audience. So that's a big difference between just presenting and presenting effectively. It's not always possible to have a dress rehearsal where the entire team does as close to the setup as you're going to have, and then practice it with the timing and the flow, transition from person to person, where you're going to stand, where's the screen. All that can be done as part of a dress rehearsal, and have a clicker or some other device if you're going to be advancing slides, or if you're going to have a teammate advance for you. Make sure you're coordinated how that's going to happen. I prefer the clicker because it shows that you're in control of the presentation. And a couple of tips. Words or fragments instead of full sentences can vary the pace. What I mean by that is sometimes you're going to do a stopwatch and say, I have 10 minutes and oh shoot, we're 10 minutes and 30 seconds. How do I cut 30 seconds? The answer is often how we choose to present segments of our presentation. For example, I could be orienting the audience toward a graph that shows over time the sales of the company. One way to orient would be on the vertical axis, we have time starting in the year 2000 through 2025. On the vertical axis, we have dollars in sales measured in millions. Okay, there's a lot of words, 2 full sentences, good English sentences, but I could do that in far fewer words. You could do so with your hand pointing at the slide and say horizontal axis, time. Vertical axis, sales in millions. So horizontal axis, time. Vertical axis, dollar sales in millions. 9 words to convey 2 sentence worth of information, which is just a setup. So it saves you time. It also helps quicken the pace. Otherwise, it will feel very kind of plodding, right? If everything's a full English sentence. So you can speed things up, keep it a little more lively with phrases and words when appropriate. You shouldn't do it when you're making a major point, of course, but things you could do, just a quick hit is a good way to do it. Or just a summary comment would be amazing performance, right? Instead of saying, we had in the last year of 2025 amazing performance for our company with regard to sales. Well, that's a lot of words. You could look at it, and when you're done with the point, just before you do your transition, say, that was amazing performance, or an amazing year, right? So phrases can be used in setup. It could be used just to quickly punch a thought. So the next part, you're done the prep, and now it's day of the presentation. You arrive at the venue. What should you not do? You shouldn't walk in at different times, talking to each other, very friendly and casual. You shouldn't look like you're seemingly unorganized, like who's doing what. Like somebody wanders up to the podium and sets up the laptop, if they have such a laptop, and they're looking around in their bag for the clicker, just seeming to be a bit disoriented. And the speaker walks over to the podium and stands at the podium and the screen, right? Those are 3 don'ts. Well, what are the do's? The do's are walking together, be professional in your demeanor and friendly, but not ha friendly, just cordial, just making light banter, just walking in. And then you want to look confident about what you're about to do and in each other. You want to say hello to investors and participants, not a long chit chat, just acknowledge them and thank them for coming. Calmly set up your papers, your laptop, your clickers, etc. on the podium as if you've done this before. And then get ready, and everyone knows where to stand, so we're not fumbling around where in the room you stand. And generally, the speaker should not be behind the podium. That creates a physical barrier between you and the audience. The speaker should scoot around to the side, either side, doesn't matter, so that there's no physical barrier between you and the audience. It shows confidence. It shows that you want to be there in a more conversational demeanor with the audience. Now, it's time to present. What are some don'ts? Well, don't is the presenter seems like the boss over everyone else. just how they glance at each other or make a scowling face, things like that. Or speaks too loud in terms of volume. Again, when you're practicing, you would know how loudly you're speaking. So speak just at the right tone to be heard by everyone in the room, but not shouting at people. That's a bad look, of course. Or too salesy. You'd be like a used car salesman at 3 a.m. on late night television. Speaking with a lot of jargon or bravado or too fast are also bad. Maintain a good professional pace, cordial, friendly, professional, but not too pushy. Or at the other extreme, you're too timid. You speak very soft-spoken, it's almost monotonic, and you have full sentences that are perfectly constructed, but nobody really understands. That's not a good presentation either, right? So don't be overly strong, but don't be timid and difficult to even listen to. I've had presentations where I have a hard time even understanding the words because they're so softly spoken. Reading from notes, as I mentioned, this is a bad one, right? A full sheet of notes, reading verbatim, those perfectly crafted sentences like this. Don't do that. With minimal eye contact, you're making eye contact with the paper, not with your investors. The other is looking at the screen. This was my problem. I would look at the screen and I would actually add swaying to it. Definitely not a good look to look at the screen and not the audience and sway from side to side on your feet. Or you're rushing through slides and I can tell you many stories. I won't in the interest of time, but I've seen many instances where the speaker realizes they're behind and then they put it in hyperdrive and the investors can't even understand what's happening. And the other point is catching cues. One of the reasons for eye contact is you'll know by looking at your audience how you're doing. You can get a sense of when they want you to speed up. They'll be glancing at their watch perhaps or looking at some paper. Or one time I had a student presenting to an actual VC in a VC office, and the VC did this, like speed up. In that particular case, it was poor preparation on the part of my student because he was informing the VC of the market and the existing competitors when this VC is well-versed in the market and probably knows more about the competition than we do. So for things, you get cues like speed up. If you get that cue, don't ignore it. You'll only upset the audience. Or you're going too fast, where you better slow down or ask if there are questions. So watch for the verbal and nonverbal cues. They'll tell you what's happening. And teammates standing on the side, that they are looking at their phone, at their watch, or their notes. They're not listening to you. No, they should be listening to what you're saying and be supportive. A nod. Don't be like exaggerated, like, yeah, what a great point. No, just nod, like, good point, things like that. And just be supportive without being over the top. And the end is say, thank you for your time, and you pack up and go. And you forget to do the ask. You're there for a purpose, to ask them for something. Don't be shy. Ask for something. And again, you could guess at the do's. Your desired impression as individuals would include words like professional, genuine, friendly, honest, high integrity, respectful, confident, competent, empathetic, and have good listening skills, right? These are all things that characterize a good speaker, one that they can trust. Remember, we're not only presenting, we're going to be partners in an investment, so they're going to trust you to do good things with their money and make good judgments on behalf of the company. And then the desired impression as a team overall is to be supportive and respectful and organized and cohesive, and you listen and supportive as each speaker is presenting. That's the dynamics of the team. The speaking ability, as mentioned previously, you want to be well practiced, be natural, not so rehearsed that it's like a robotic, deliver with good tone, pace, and clarity, and show mastery of the material. Right? The more you practice, the more expert you'll sound. It just can't help it because you have confidence in what you're speaking about. So other factors would be eye contact. Don't look at the ceiling or the screen. Make eye contact. Don't stare. Just make good eye contact with the audience. Show minimal or no need for the notes. Body language should be, again, reinforcing the characteristics we mentioned earlier, and be attentive to the room. Everything that's all that's happening, and don't move too fast, too slowly. Watch for those cues, and don't forget to ask. What is this ask you're talking about? We've talked about it before. There's something you want from the meeting, and the ask should be what you want from the meeting. In an early stage investor presentation, the ask is for another meeting. And the ask could go like, I hope our presentation engenders some interest on your part to listen more about what we have and for us to actually bring our product and do a product demonstration so you can see the product in action. We have time next week. How does next Monday or Tuesday look? Right? That's an ask. And you're putting them on the spot a bit. Try not to do it too uncomfortably, but you want to know if you've been effective. And if they liked it, it'll be quick. It'll be, yes, let's do this. Let's meet next week. Monday, Tuesday are bad, but next Thursday is good. Fine. We can do Thursday. Whatever time you want, we'll make. If we have a meeting, we'll move it. What time would you like to meet on Thursday? Something like that. So the ask should be the last thing. It is not to convey that you're not grateful. So I'm not saying don't say thank you. It's just say do your thank yous first and then end on the ask. It could be thank you for your time and attention. We hope that this was very effective for you. And what we'd love to do is next week get together with you to show you our actual product, do a proper demo, and discuss further about our business plan. Something like that. Like go from the thank you and move into the ask as the last thing you say. All right, the next section, which is very important, is the Q&A. So don't prep so much for the presentation and ignore and not prepare for the Q&A. Here's some bad practices. No backup slides or they're sloppy. Or you're constantly going backwards through your slide deck to find where you talked about that topic and then essentially repeat your presentation. That's the worst. If an audience member has a question and if you've done a good job presenting, you should never have to go repeat a slide, right? That should be not necessary. But if they ask for the slide, of course you will. But the audience has a specific question. You should answer the question directly. Don't be too curt about it, like yes or no, right? But don't go on and on and on and on answering the question. There's a reason for the question. Answer it professionally and succinctly. And the other thing is you have backup slides, but there's an organization. So you do blah, 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 click, 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 advancing, and they're watching the slide just fly across the screen, and not good. Speaking before the question is completely asked. So you know the material well. You probably anticipated some of the question. When an audience member or an investor is asking a question, don't cut them off. Let them finish their question before you answer. It's very rude to not let someone express their full thought. The other thing, as I mentioned earlier, is to have a 3-minute answer to a very short question. You've now eaten up much of the time you have in Q&A, and sometimes there's a limit on how many minutes of Q&A there are. You want as many of their questions to be asked so you can answer them, again, briefly but directly all along the way. And the lead presenter answers all the questions. I'm the expert. I get to present and I get to answer all the questions. No, you have a team. Are they just there as monuments on the wall? No, that's not the right answer. And no new insights, where you're essentially repeating what you've learned. What the audience will read into that is, oh, we got everything they had in the presentation because you've not added any value in answering the questions. These are all don't. These are pretty deadly don'ts, frankly, because you're leaving a bad impression. What are the do's? Backup slides are there for anticipated questions, and they're organized with a table of contents where an audience member or an investor asks you a question, and then you with your pointer or somebody who's helping you on your team, you go to a table of contents and just do it by tapping in the number that represents that slide number. Boom, up comes the slide. And it shows 10 to 15, let's say, bullet points that are the contents of the appendix. And then you see, oh, that's question 4. That's point number 29. You hit 29, bang. You go right to that slide and you answer the question. And there's new data. It's not a repeat. There's new data adding breadth or depth to what you already presented. So what impression does that leave the investor? They're saying, wow, that table of contents had more questions than I could even think of. These guys are prepared. And then 29, bang, it goes to 29. It's right dead center on their question. So they've anticipated your question, and now you're getting the full answer. And they would have told you this in the presentation, but they have a limited amount of time. So, wow, are they this deep in every question I might come with. So you're giving this positive impression of being very, very prepared. And listen to the question attentively, let them finish, and then answer directly and succinctly. Don't ramble into tangents. It's just a bad look for everyone in the audience. We can all hear the question, and if you're going off to hither and yon, that does not reflect well on you. Involve team members, particularly if they didn't present. But in any regard, if you're the presenter, try not to answer any questions unless it's absolutely in your wheelhouse, because you want to show off your team. So let them describe what they were discussing in the presentation, or if there's a role that they cover, but that role was not highlighted in the presentation, have them speak. The impression the investors have is, wow, this is a deep team. The presenter was really good. The other presenters that were second and third were also good. And these other people that were there on the side are now answering questions in a very expert way. The other thing is, before you go into the Q&A or the presentation, think of some key messages that you could not get into your storyboard, but are important enough for you to bring up in Q&A. And there is a technique called bridging that is taught in PR. Again, a long story, I'll spare you. But going into a meeting, there are certain messages that you want to convey that were not in your presentation. When you get a question that's close to that particular point, answer the question directly and then gracefully bridge to the other point to make it seem like an elaboration on the question. And that's a powerful thing to do. So let's say you have very strong techniques and processes and know-how that are not covered in a patent. And the question comes up, describe your intellectual property. And you start describing the patents that you hold. That's great. And you say, in addition to file patents and copyrights that we would have, we also have trade secrets. The trade secrets lie in our understanding of the manufacturing process, and our competitors don't have as many years of experience and processes that we have to assure efficient and high quality manufacturing all along the way, right? So you talk about directly IP, patents and copyrights, and you bridge to know-how and process, which are essentially trade secrets, right? Another form of intellectual property, one that is not filed or something you could sue on, but is clearly intellectual property. Some final thoughts on presentation. First, rehearse and rehearse again. I guess there is a point where you rehearse too much, where you're sounding like a robot, but it takes you a long time to get to that stage. In general, people are under-rehearsed, not over-rehearsed. Don't memorize your pitch. It'll come across memorized. It will not seem natural. You may present it 5 different times, and each time is slightly different. And that's okay, because they want you to be natural, be genuine. Because if you're working together, that's what they're going to get. They're going to get you, knowledgeable, professional, competent, and the words could be different every single time that you answer a question. Same thoughts, same underlying answer, but expressed in slightly different ways. And the other thing that's inevitable in a lot of things in life and in business is you're going to hit moguls, these little bumps that were unanticipated. And the skier there is really on their toes, ready to go, moving from mogul to mogul, and it doesn't harm at all. So what this entails is you should be ready for an impromptu pitch. A friend of yours is at a bar, you walk up and they say, hey, Larry, meet so-and-so. Tell them what you're doing. You had no preparation for that whatsoever, and you're ready with your bar pitch, right? Or in Q&A, they're going to be throwing curveballs at you, maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally, but regardless, they're curveballs. And you say, okay, you need to maneuver to be able to answer those questions very, very well. And those are like moguls. So the skier is a good example. Moguls are definitely a good example. The other thought is slow down. We tend to speak very fast. We're excited, we have a time limit, and we want to get through to the entire presentation. But seeming rushed is against your effectiveness. So slow down. Not super slow, but slow down. Relax. If you're tense or highly charged up or energetic, that's going to be a little off-putting. Relax. Be professional. Be excited, but don't be frenetic. So summarizing topic number 5, we had some introductory comments where we talked about you're in control of the presentation and present meaning, not just data. There's always a so what that's very clear in looking at the slide and in hearing what you're saying. In the preparation, know your material cold, so you practice, you coordinate with your team. Walking into the room, be professional, confident, cordial, and prepared. Presenting, connect with the audience. Be natural, have good pace without rushing, and show speaking skills in order to be effective and avoid notes if you can. By the way, you can hold the notes there just as a safety blanket. You don't have to look at them ever, but if you had them there, it might emotionally settle you down, and that would be fine. In Q&A, show off your team. Use backup slides that were previously prepared because you're anticipating the questions that may arise, or you're adding depth to the slides you did present. And answer briefly and directly. Don't dodge questions. If you don't know, tell them you don't know. Don't lie. Don't meander. And final thoughts are to rehearse, slow down, and relax. So we're done. Just to recap at a higher level, we've looked at the 4 sections of the Perfect Pitch Playbook, which is plan, design, create, and deliver and persuade. Now we're going to hop on the bike and practice, because the more you practice, the better you get. Guaranteed.